Welcome back to Tech, AI and Cyber Live. And joining us next, we have Frank Wilde from SAP. And today, Frank is going to be sharing his insights on scaling the intelligent enterprise. Frank Wilde leads customer innovation as a vice president for SAP's Global Center of Excellence. In this role, Frank's teams of data scientists and platform architects spark innovative thinking with SAP's strategic customers leveraging 5G and edge services. Frank is a seasoned executive with a focus on product innovation, sales and sales operations. Before joining SAP, Frank led a software development organization at Apple, supporting Apple's strategic partners such as IBM, Cisco, and AT&T. Prior to Apple, Frank led a corporate strategy organization and a sales innovation organization at Dell. His teams designed and built Dell's first consumer loyalty platform and created a competitive version of iTunes. Interesting. Frank also spent 9 years with Deloitte Consulting, leading digital transformations with high-tech, telecom, and public sector clients. Frank began his career as a software engineer, building CRM and supply chain applications before transitioning into management consulting. Frank also attended UCLA for college and an MBA at Duke University, and on top of all that, also served as an officer in the Navy. He's currently based in Palo Alto, and if you want to contact him at any time, his email is f.wilde@sap.com. So welcome to the show, Frank.
Thank you, Scott. Good morning. I'm happy to be here. We have exciting content to dive into together. Like you mentioned, where we see significant opportunity really across industries. This is very much focused initially in retail and manufacturing and even healthcare and oil and gas, but across industries, one of the exciting pieces that have come to life is the fact that we've partnered with key telcos and moving forward. So we've done quite a bit of work to help drive solutions that take advantage of 5G and edge services so that we can unlock new business models. We can help our customers very much go to market in new ways. And one of the things that we're very excited by is the potential. Not only is there a significant focus on advanced connectivity in terms of additional bandwidth, so of course they're faster networks, but really what we're most excited by is the fact that you can see, and open up on-demand business models so we can help our customers think very differently about how they go to market, how they engage with customers, how they even engage with employees moving forward. So today's discussion is really focused around, where do we see advanced connectivity, partnering with edge services, and how does SAP's data platform and our software merge together to be able to help unlock these new business models at scale. So to give just to give a bit of background, we're very excited by the technology around 5G and edge services because it represents a step function change in capability. So yes, it's a faster network, but more importantly, it's the fact that you can unlock new business models, the fact that you can put network slices and you can guarantee a level of connectivity all the way down to a specific device. So under prior networks, under 4G and prior versions of Wi-Fi, you didn't have the ability to be able to earmark, bandwidth all the way down to at a device level. So whether it's an IoT sensor, whether it's an iPad, whether it's an autonomous vehicle, you can now earmark bandwidth specific to that device, and you can wrap a service level around it, much as if it was a wired connection. So that represents a fundamental change in network design, as well as the capabilities that supports moving forward. So we can, for example, in a crowded stadium, provide bandwidth to be able to support, commerce. So if I've got 50,000 people in a given football stadium or soccer stadium, and if I can earmark 10 or 15% of that bandwidth to make sure that customers can always order drinks or they can always buy from the concessions, that's a significant shift in capability, just with a new network overlay. So that's one of the reasons that we're very excited by the capability and the technology. And when you then layer in SAP's data platform, our analytics, our supply chain offerings, it represents a full suite of solutions that we can now support autonomous forklifts, for example, flowing through a shop floor, or we can be able to work with, AR goggles for employees that they can speed distribution center. So there's a number of new capabilities that 5G and edge services, when you then marry that up with both cloud and on-premise software, that opens up significant opportunities moving forward. Now, when we think about, how does that tie into, really what SAP offers? So we're now in a position to be able to personalize experiences at scale. So if I've got a customer, walking through a store aisle to be able to make a purchase in a retail store, for example, I can now tailor the content to that customer who picks up that box of cereal and now has a 3D immersive experience to be able to see the product contents or to look for, food allergies, for example. And we can do that in real time with video analytics, with the edge service that we're able to deploy, and then marry that to our cloud and on-premise suite from SAP, so a customer can take advantage of the investments that they've already made in the cloud as well as on-premise. And then that supports a new level of innovation. And we're able to digitize that last mile, again, whether it's to a consumer or it could very well be to an employee who may be restocking those shelves. Where exactly does that product need to sit? Exactly what's the alignment to a planogram, for example. So those are the type of things that we can now do in an immersive fashion, even potentially in a tactile fashion, in ways that we haven't been able to do before. So we're moving very much from a 2D world into a 3D world, and we're able to personalize that content all the way down to a market of one or a employee of one in ways that we haven't been able to do before. And like I mentioned, there's also a significant opportunity as a result of this, that we can now essentially create business models on the fly. So, like I mentioned, if I pick up, if a customer picks up a box of cereal and they use their phone to be able to see the product contents, we can now, with SAP's platform, connect that consumer to the brand. So whether it's General Mills or whether it's Kellogg's, whoever the brand may be, we can provide a direct connection and monetize that connection because we can guarantee the bandwidth across that 5G or that Wi-Fi 6 environment. So that becomes a significant capability. And of course, there's a number of aspects that we're excited by as well as increased data rates. Being able to support 1 million devices in a square kilometer, and then the software-defined network, coming together to enable these capabilities. So as we think about how does this unlock and how does this bring about new business outcomes, SAP is uniquely positioned to work with global telcos, to be able to partner with system integrators around the world to help our customers think very differently about the value proposition with their in their markets, and how can we unlock this these new capabilities together. Now, one of the things that we've also done, we've spent quite a bit of time working with, for example, Verizon. Verizon chose to go wall to wall with SAP across the enterprise for finance and for supply chain solutions, a couple years ago. And they've also realized that to be able to fuel innovation, to be able to help go to market differently, they've realized that they've needed to partner with SAP as well as key consulting partners like Deloitte and Accenture and IBM to really look at through the eyes of their customers, our joint customers. What is it that they need? How can we pull together the connectivity, the edge services, and take advantage of the software that our customers have already deployed across the enterprise to be able to bring about this new level of thinking and these new customer experiences moving forward. So we've developed a co-innovation playbook. We've looked at ways to be able to lay out specific use cases across industries. So retail and manufacturing and oil and gas are a few that we've started with over the course of the last 3 years. And we spent quite a bit of time putting together the technical architecture, putting together the business architecture to make it, to serve as an accelerator for our customers moving forward, that they can use templates as well as, custom solutions together. But we've helped to accelerate that thinking that our customers can then take advantage of moving forward. So with that, to give you an example of the type of, thinking and the type of approaches that we've laid out, as you look at, the store of the future, if I'm in a retail environment, not only can we put in place autonomous checkout to be able to make it easy, particularly in a COVID world, to remove any kind of touchless, to make it touchless in terms of the overall experiences. We could also handle real-time inventory. So as you think about using video analytics to be able to track product that may be flying off a store shelf, you can identify those patterns. You can look at and remove any kind of manual inventory checks, for example, or aligning to planograms. We can now do that in a digitized fashion using video analytics, edge services, and SAP's cloud and on-premise suite to be able to do just that. So it removes friction out of the equation. It ideally provides a much more seamless effect for the customers, experience that there's now not, product that's out of stock, or that we can ideally move to be much more predictive to identify what, shopping patterns are we seeing in real time, that we can adjust, stock reorders, whether they're coming from the back room or from a distribution center. We can do that and provide a much more fluid experience for customers, that they don't see stock out of, stock outs on a given store shelf, for example. So these are the type of solutions that we've partnered with Verizon on, that we've worked, in particular, we've spent quite a bit of time, with Deloitte, for example, and we've looked at how can we bring about these solutions that our customers can take advantage of, in short order. So we can do this in a few weeks as opposed to a few months or even a few years, depending on the nature of the solution. So we're giving our customers, quite a bit of a leg up, because we've done a lot of the heavy lifting. And if you think of this as kind of the puzzle pieces or the building blocks, we really just then have, the ability to help our customers, add the glue for their specific environment to make it, specific to them. And we've also done quite a bit of work, with immersive experiences. So when you think about AR-enabled product information, so if I pick up, a product, I could use my phone, for example, to be able to see, what are the product contents, or where was that, product made? So there's a much more immersive 3D element to what we're doing. So it becomes much more engaging and really differentiates, existing, retail experiences moving forward. So as we've also been looking at ways to be able to improve, other industries. So if you think about manufacturing or, supply chain management, which is one of SAP's strengths, we've spent quite a bit of time looking at how could we help, drive innovation. So whether it's autonomous forklifts, flowing dynamically, through a manufacturing complex, or it's, using AR goggles in place of barcode scanning to locate product, that may be sitting, on a large distribution center or, distribution hub. So we've given our customers the ability to think very differently and to improve not only their operations, but also improve employee retention, because now employees can do much more value add work rather than, running through a, distribution hub, scanning barcodes, looking for customer orders. We instead can give them new tools. We can give them a, 2 and 3D imagery to be able to identify where a given, customer order sits, and it may be scattered over a 4 or 5 acre facility. So they could do that in a few seconds rather than a few hours of barcode scanning, for example. So these are the type of solutions and the type of areas that we have been focused on to help our customers innovate, to think very differently about, distribution operations, supply chain operations, and to take this really to the next level, because we're able to, improve their costs, in terms of their expenses around, the supply chain, but also give them a much more nimble approach to be able to support how do they operate, on a given day or in a given quarter. So along those lines, Scott, we've also realized that this takes, very much an ecosystem approach. So one of the things that we had put in place, going back to 2018, was we realized that we needed to be able to support, the connectivity. So pulling from, kind of the Verizons and the Vodafones of the world, we've needed to, partner with key customers like Corning or Harman, as well as, engage with industry players, whether it's a Deloitte or a Dell, looking at, both the hardware, the software, the connectivity, as well as the consulting needed to bring these 5G solutions to life, because there's quite a bit of power, like we've discussed so far, but there's also quite a bit of complexity. So being able to do a lot of that heavy lifting for our customers is one of the areas that we focused on. So to help sketch out those new business models and the new technical architectures to support that, we've created a 5G council, and essentially gets together every 6 months. So we've got a group of leaders that sit in product strategy and corporate strategy, as well as partner strategy. So it's it's not just a technology question. It's really one around business capability and business strategy. So we've launched this council, and it's really helped seed, for example, even some of the content that we were discussing today, for example, that, 5G enabled supply chain. That's very much an extension or work that the council had commissioned together. So it gives you a sense for the type of thought leadership and the way that we're going about, this thinking moving forward. So it's very much paid dividends because we've looked at it through the eyes of our customers around what software do they need, what hardware, what's the connectivity, how can we help them implement and do this all together, rather than, a given customer needing to fuse these, pieces and different partners, into, one approach. So with that, I would also highlight, how do we do this? One of the, approaches that we've taken, and this is something that we've honed over the course of the last 3 years, has very much been our innovation methodology. We've been looking at how do we ideate, how do we help customers think, using, our, user-centric design approach, really understanding the needs of that customer or that employee that may be standing in a store aisle or working in a distribution center. So we've got quite a bit of content in terms of use cases, technical architectures, customer and employee journey maps. So we've fused this content into an overall methodology that allows us to be able to help our customers, again, in a few weeks, identify what use cases do they want to go after. How do we help them rank, prioritize those use cases, whether it's in terms of new revenue creation, whether it's in terms of cost savings, that we can make it very easy, because it's often not for a lack of ideas. We often have, roughly, a dozen or more, ideas that will come up or use cases that we want to focus in on. And we typically then boil it down to 2 to 3 use cases that we can, action in, let's say a 2 to 3 month window. So as we then launch, and put together the business case and launch that, proof of concept together, this is typically the approach that we have. And SAP having, 440,000 enterprise customers, over the course of the last 50 years, we are uniquely positioned to be able to help, identify what is that business case, what is the approach and the cost benefit analysis to be able to make sure that we can take our lessons learned from the software deployments that we've had since we, even launched the company, to be able to help our customers to be able to look at, well, what is going to be most impactful? How can I fundamentally change, how I operate as a retailer, or how do I, handle my manufacturing operations as a manufacturer? So those are the type of questions that we're in a position to help our customers answer in short order. So it becomes very exciting to work through these, innovation sessions with our customers. So if you'd like to learn more, I'd be happy to engage my team to be able to talk about what the methodology, the approach, and some of the, example projects that we've kicked off to be able to, highlight how we can help you. And along those lines, I made mention that we've also had a technical architecture that we focused on. So as you think about the connectivity on the far left, you have edge services, typically a MEC, so a mobile edge compute platform, which is essentially, a set of rack servers. You then have in the center and on the far right, you've got our cloud properties, so for analytics, for data management, for digital supply chain services. And then we've married that to any on-premise ERP. So typically that would be, HANA, it would be S4 for SAP, as well as ECC, our legacy, ERP. And what we've done, working, for example, with Verizon, is that we've certified in Verizon's labs, our edge, cloud, and on-prem suite to be able to showcase that we can, support autonomous forklifts. We can handle the data management. We can use the AI and machine learning to be able to identify, what is the optimal route for that forklift in that, manufacturing facility, for example. So that's the type of work that we've done with Verizon. And when you've got their cloud offering, their things-based platform married with their MEC, we're in a unique position to be able to bring about, these services, across, a number of different verticals, a number of different industries. So I'd be happy to discuss with you, how do we do this together, and how can we help unlock these new business models at scale? So it becomes very exciting. So Scott, as we think about, 5G and edge services, what questions or what points jump to mind?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Frank. Sorry, I was waiting to dive back in there. I was just making some notes as well. No, that was really great. Thank you for that. I know this is a topic that we've talked about, the two of us, before a couple of times as well. Now, I'm sure what most people the question that most of our attendees probably have right now is you mentioned the business case, for instance, right, for 5G. Which industries do you see adopting this 5G technology first, and in what ways are they doing it? I mean, you gave examples from the retail side, for instance, which sound really transformative and really exciting from a consumer perspective. Are they leading the way, or is it something more practical, if you like supply chain?
I mean, I think that's a good question, because when we think about where do we see the most energy and enthusiasm, I mean, it's absolutely in retail. I mean, to be able to help drive omni-channel experiences, to be able to link, social, mobile, and live experiences together is very much a challenge and an opportunity for retailers. When you think about manufacturing, when you think about being able to look at ways to be able to differentiate, how do you handle your manufacturing operations? Do you handle quality control? Handle product movement, as well as part movement. And then when we think about kind of oil and gas, as well as telecom and media, we're very much seeing quite a bit of opportunity. When you look at oil and gas, for example, the ability to have remote oil field management, which is not something that really any of the existing kind of oil and gas companies can support. I mean, certain oil and gas companies, I mean, their data is up to a month old. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, wellheads that have oil flowing, and not having visibility into an overview of how much gas is being extracted. That becomes a significant opportunity for us to be able to help not only improve their data management, but also to provide new capabilities. If I can, rather than flying out a team to do remote equipment maintenance or repair, if I could use and handle through a 5G enabled link and dedicate connectivity, if I could do that with a robotic arm and an autonomous vehicle, that fundamentally changes how quickly I can respond to equipment failure, or ideally be predictive in the sense that what equipment is going to go down when, and you can pre-position with SAP the parts, the staff, as well as the equipment needed to complete that repair. And you can ideally have it done before it ever goes down, so you have no loss or downtime. I mean, that becomes very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about 5G, and you talked about the speeds, obviously, which is what most people associate with 5G, I think. But obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. One of the things that you mentioned was the network slicing, right? And also the ability to have that reliability as well, like you mentioned, like a robotic arm there, for instance, but the ability to do remote surgery, for instance. That is made possible now, isn't it? And I think that's the real exciting thing for me, at least, about 5G. And you mentioned it a few times. It's not just the business case and everything else. It's a complete step change. There are things that people are able to do with 5G that simply are not possible right now. Correct?
Exactly. And that's where, with the software-defined network and that network slicing, you're now able to guarantee a level of connectivity and provide a service level around it. So with that service level, you can charge for that as a service, right? So if I can say 5% or 8% of the network is dedicated to a remote surgery, I can make sure that that robotic arm is always moving in line with exactly what the surgeon's intent is, right? And now that you have an ultra low latency network, you can make sure that, with 5 milliseconds or 10 milliseconds of delay, that it emulates and has a level of precision that supports exactly the movement that the doctor or the surgeon would be following. So with the reliability, with that increase or the decrease in latency, really, and the ability to now charge for that as a service, we can open up new revenue models. And SAP, has a interesting approach, because with that reference architecture that I mentioned, we have also layered in a billing component, and this is something that allows us to now monetize that connection. So we can use a quality of service metric, which is not something that existing telcos even often can support. So if I can guarantee on that robotic surgery or that remote surgery, the latency, the bandwidth, as well as the response time for that overall solution or service, I can now charge for that. And using SAP, we can provide a billing mechanism to support a new revenue model for whether it's for the hospital, whether it's for the surgeon. It becomes a very interesting question around how can we do this together to help drive new revenue streams. So we can fundamentally move IT from being a cost center to a profit center, which in and of itself is very exciting.
Absolutely. Anything relating to profit is very exciting, Frank, in my book. So that's good. So where do you see the most? And actually, we're coming up to the last few minutes, so we'll have to try and keep a couple of answers a little bit brief, if you don't mind. But where do you see the most promise for 5G at the edge?
To be honest with you, it applies across vertical. So it very much applies across the entire supply chain. So whether this is a retail customer, whether they're in transportation or oil and gas, this really impacts their overall ability to be able to innovate and scale. So one of the exciting pieces for me, just like we mentioned, there are specific industries that are, running point on this, when you think about retail and manufacturing and oil and gas and even the public sector. But this applies across industries. So the exciting aspect for me is that much like we've seen with COVID and the impact to supply chains, the more that we can do to help any organization innovate their supply chain to be much more nimble, to be much more predictive in nature, we can leverage advanced connectivity and edge services to do just that.
Okay, and another quick one I'm going to throw your way, Frank. In your opinion, is 5G being made available quickly enough around the world? I know, for instance, you've done a lot of work with Verizon on this, and obviously they're doing some great work in the US with the 5G. But obviously, we're talking to a global audience here today. Is 5G being rolled out quickly enough?
Well, that's an interesting nuance, because there's both the public network and then private networks. And part of the reason that SAP has been pioneering 5G and edge services for the last 3 years, even in advance of the public network deployment, is that we're able to support private networks. So whether it's for a manufacturing complex or for a retailer that may have a group of stores in a physical area, we're uniquely positioned and using the experiences over these last 3 years to be able to deploy private 5G, across a given manufacturing complex, for example, and we can do that tomorrow. So there doesn't have to be a direct link to a public network deployment. So we don't have, for example, in a rural setting where there may very well not have a 5G or a edge service plan for 5 or 10 years. We can deploy that and work with our customers to be able to deploy a 5G solution tomorrow. So depending on the location and the actual requirements of what the customer is looking to do, that's another nuance that I would highlight, is that this is something that we can help customers with today, regardless of really where they are in kind of their public network infrastructure deployment.
Okay, that's great. I think we'll wrap things up there, Frank, because we're starting to run out of time. But if anybody has any further questions for Frank, I did give out his email address at the top of this session. I hope you don't mind, Frank. But you can also connect with Frank via our networking capabilities, of course, here on the platform. So you can reach out to Frank with any questions that you might have. But for now, Frank, thank you for your time once again, and thanks for that fascinating session.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.